So welcome everyone to our second AMA series focusing on designing the best DeFi experience on Cardano. So my name is Tashoma Vellini, and today we're joined by Tim Welsen.
Hey guys, how's it going? I am the lead UI UX designer for Liqwid. Yeah, and I'm based in Spain.
Cool. And Thomas Diaz Santos.
Hey guys, I'm mainly working on the web stuff here.
And Kylix Alfonso.
Hey there, I'm Kylix. I'm based out of Portugal, and I am a software engineer, and I focus mainly on project management tasks.
And today we're going to explore how Liqwid is pushing the boundaries of the DeFi user experience. So, Tim, starting off, I know that there were a lot of changes in the upcoming version. So could you walk me through how you approached redesigning the interface?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the new interface was kind of a journey that started with developing the new logo or the rebranding for Liqwid. So we started by looking at where Liqwid is now in terms of design and where we wanted to go. So we wanted to take Liqwid really to the next level. I guess this evolution was the start of the whole redesign project. Liqwid branding used to have a more, I think, gamified look. We had we wanted to have a more professionalized look towards the future, and create like a cohesive, professional visual language that we could spread outward to the users, the current users, and also the new users. So we wanted to do this by redoing the branding first off, and we discussed with the team internally, and there was a lot of things that a lot of noises that we wanted to keep the droplet, like the original one. So we did the redesign with the original droplet in mind. And this was, I think, a natural step for Liqwid forwards to have a more professional branding to also onboard the next group of users that is for sure coming.
Yeah, I really do feel, I mean, having been involved in the original branding of the gamified look, I really feel you've done a great job here, kind of bridging traditional finance with that blockchain world. So, and we also managed to keep the aqua farmer as well, which you were responsible for as well, which I think is really cool. So,
yeah, so we had to find a good balance there, like you said, between creating a professionalized look and also keeping our existing user base also, and also the projects we have ongoing, like the aqua farmers. And from that, it was sort of a natural evolution to do the rebranding and then look at, okay, where's the current V2 app now, and how could we improve the user experience and the user interface? And we started that process by mapping out user actions and the different processes we have in the app. So you think about the borrow and collateral, the borrow and supply steps, and how many clicks this would take. So we basically start mapping out every user action, so we get a complete overview of all the user actions that are in the applications. And we created then some flow charts from the user actions. And then we wanted to see, like, okay, where in these flow charts can we make a difference, and can we improve user experience? So it's basically breaking down the more complex actions we have now into more intuitive, simpler steps. Go ahead.
So what would you say were the complex actions or the friction points that you wanted to break down?
There weren't so much like big friction points in the sense that it was not usable or anything, because of course the app is currently being used, but there was definitely steps we could optimize, which was, for example, creating a borrow felt sometimes more of a process of trial and error instead of being an intuitive process like you supply and then when you open or borrow or you want to open a position, you could basically enter an amount and it would select something automatically, and you don't have to use a drop down to select something, to play around with numbers. These were all like unnecessary actions for a lot of users, and there's still the ability to do that, of course, but it works more intuitive, and we also came to that with doing research in different other existing DeFi protocols like an Aave and a Camino on Solana. But yeah, we have to still keep in mind that Cardano is different, and it's good to learn and to watch how other protocols do it, and to see like, okay, what do they do good and what do they do less good, and take the good and try to also incorporate that in the user flow for Liqwid. So we did this research, and we had the steps mapped out. We did the research, and then it was just basically making the whole process smaller. And so we did the creation of the new design system and the implementation of that. And we used to create a consistent component library for all of the different components we designed for the new V2 design. So we improved everything from the various modals inside of the applications and the user actions. We try to have better user feedback from the app. So when you do something that for some reason you cannot open a position, that we wanted to give more clear information about that. So it's mostly a more simplified process of supplying and borrowing with more intuitive user actions that is then clearly defined by the design. And then, of course, we also checked the responsive design, which everyone knows, like, we're going more and more mobile towards the future, and I think the future of crypto in general is also going more mobile, of course. So we also did a big focus on that to create a better visual mobile design. And I think some screenshots have been shared on Twitter as well. So this is basically how we mapped out the process from doing the redesign of the branding to mapping out the user processes, and then try to find ways to optimize the current flow we have without doing too much technical stuff in the backend to not break up the current flow that we have. And so this was basically the whole process of developing the new interface, including the professional rebranding we did for the Liqwid.
Great, thanks, Tim. And the preview screenshots of the new UI design you can find on our X profile page. All right, so Thomas, you rebuilt quite a bit of the architecture behind the scenes. So what were some of the biggest technical decisions that shaped that?
Yes. So mostly coming from V1, we moved away from our initial code base that was implemented for like the beginning of Liqwid, which used PureScript. PureScript was nice at the time because we had like partners helping us. But now that we are like a smaller team, we decided to move away from it. It had also some issues, like architectural issues that just made the UX worse for the users. So, for example, to build transactions, you had to create a ton of UTXOs on the fly, which made building a transaction like a minute long. So one thing we did is move away from PureScript, and we chose to use Lucid, which is implemented in TypeScript, which at the time was kind of like the standard that everyone used. So we're still on it, and like we are really happy with the like decision to switch to it. It allowed us to kind of like have sort of way more maintainable code base. By maintainable, I mean that we can fix issues if we have any. If we want to implement new features, we can somewhat easily do it, especially compared to pure script. And it allows us to kind of choose more precisely whatever architecture we want. So, for example, one thing we did is move from creating UTXOs on the fly to having a sort of like backend, which is called Frank. What is it called again?
Aqueduct.
Aqueduct. I'm kind of sick.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
does not help. So yeah, we're using a kind of new backend which is called Aqueduct, which is kind of like an UTXO indexer for Liqwid, which basically allows us to, instead of creating UTXOs on the fly, we just have them sitting there ready to be used, which makes for like a way better UX, obviously. We also have like much less CPU's usage time. The pure script was kind of like unoptimized. We probably could have optimized it more, but it didn't seem like worth it since we moved to Lucid. And yeah, it's just implemented in TypeScript overall, so it's like nicer to use instead of having to like compile pure script and debug it. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Thomas. So, Kylix, Cardano's architecture is rather unique. So could you expand on the challenges that the EU TXO created for you guys, and how did you go about solving them?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the backend side of the equation, some of the problems that we had, some of the unoptimizations and difficulties that we faced had to do with the fact that the EU TXO model kind of takes some benefits in exchange for some negative trade-offs. So some of the benefits that I think a lot of Cardano users know about, and even are Cardano users because of it, are security, determinism, decentralization. So these are all wins. But to achieve all of these things, architecturally speaking, you kind of have to live with some technical difficulties. So some of the user-facing benefits kind of cost us developers a little bit more time. And some of these problems go through, for instance, the UTXO model implying determinism through the fact that you consume UTXOs. So instead of spending from what an account model you would call an account, and this is allowed to be to happen simultaneously from multiple sources, with the only check being, the leftover value at that account needs to be more than 0, of course, equal or more than 0. When we talk about UTXOs, no, you don't spend an amount from a place. You actually spend a small pocket, almost you can call it a coin, where UTXO is a coin. And so each one of those coins has a unique identifier. And what this means for us is that spending UTXOs actually implies, or spending amounts from a specific place, instead of implying just spending amounts directly from that place, you actually have to spend it from multiple smaller places, let's say. I won't go into too much detail, but generally speaking, this implies some difficulties in terms of concurrency. So yeah, that's definitely one of our troubles. There are others though, namely lack of good developer tooling. So as Thomas mentioned earlier, we originally implemented Liqwid's kind of off-chain, the transaction library, in CTL and pure scripts. And to be completely honest, this wasn't really an option back then. You had to do it that way because although Lucid has existed roughly since around the same time as CTL, they were the only two options. And so you didn't really have any certainty about which one of the two was better, and you were kind of stuck with that. So today I'll happily say Cardano has a lot more tooling, especially with Catalyst funding a lot of projects and a lot of new transaction libraries, UTXO indexing solutions, etc., coming out. Also, on-chain languages like Plutarch being much more developed than previously, and Icon. At the time that both Liqwid V1 and Liqwid V2 were built, there was a lot less tooling. So it's a kind of a move fast domain. So yeah, those are two of the kind of troubles we had. Aqueduct, for instance, is a good example of where us, Liqwid Labs, we took a proactive approach to trying to solve one of those problems, which was a lack of a fast enough indexing solution. And so we built this indexing solution, Aqueduct, that Thomas was talking about, which basically provides you data instantly, unlike some of these other indexing solutions, and so on and so on. But I won't go too deep into the development details because probably not too interesting for users. So some of the things that we did to improve the architecture from Liqwid V1 to Liqwid V2 included managing state better, reducing redundant calls to any indexing or API solution. And actually, one of the things that we did not optimize for, but accidentally reached, which was a pretty big breakthrough, was lower fees. So due to the fact that we used an older version of CTL at the time that we were building Liqwid V1, added to the fact that some of the transaction builders were kind of built on the fly while we were still auditing and everything else. We actually had some redundant constraints in some of those transaction builders. And so what that meant was when we rebuilt the transaction builders, we actually accidentally, but happily accidentally, optimized both transaction fees and transaction sizes. So those were some of the wins we got here.
Wow, that's amazing. So it was by accident that you managed to bring down both the transaction speed and costs. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I guess that's a classic example of a slow and steady wins the race approach that Cardano is known for.
Absolutely, yeah. We're definitely slow, but at least we're secure and we're careful.
Great. So Tim, the dashboard feels much clearer now. What was your thinking behind those changes?
Well, as all the design user interface changes we make, it's always the user always drives the changes in the design. So we wanted to use a clear user pattern with intuitive design that it felt an intuitive experience from going from one input field to the next call to action you have to do without users having to look around, and we wanted to show that all of the information, all of the critical information was right there on the main dashboard as well. So we also redesigned the dashboard from the current one. We wanted to make sure that all of the main information was shown right there when you open the application, all of the most information you need. If you either are just applying for the first time, or you either opened a position, we wanted to have a clear hierarchy of information in the dashboard, displaying, of course, the main info right away when you open the application, and then using different tools to display the extra information that is maybe only for more power users or users that have a lot of different positions open, that they still have all of the information right there, but under different user actions, like, for example, an accordion. So it was basically reducing the steps for common actions. And we also, in the dashboard, have an improved error messaging system for when something goes wrong, when something is not allowed. And yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to say it yet, but we also have a notification system in the V2 coming up. So
yeah, we're gonna leave those details for the end, but thank you. But I have to say, using both version 1 and version 2, version 2 definitely feels so much more reassuring when handling funds, and I think that was a key goal.
Yeah, we're excited to push that design out as well, and have a better user experience for everyone using the application right now, and the new users that are definitely onboarding soon.
Great. And thank you. So Thomas, it seems like the bull market is here, and we're starting to see, these new users and an increase in TVL. So infrastructure is obviously critical as we grow. So how are we preparing for this scaling?
Yep. So one thing that's really nice about Liqwid is, or at least Liqwid's off-chain, is that it can easily scale to thousands and hundred thousands of people. The off-chain is doing like a really light amount of work. Um, all that's really needed here is basically just have like more servers as we go, but they don't really do much. So like one server can handle really a lot of people. That's one really nice thing about how Liqwid is designed. Um, one thing though that we are definitely improving every day is our infrastructure and security. So for example, one thing that we use for infrastructure is called Kubernetes. And it is kind of the industry standard. Everyone uses it, like the biggest company and the smallest one too. It's basically a way to kind of have tasks running on servers and have them done in a redundant way. So, for example, if you were to have some backend running somewhere uh, without Kubernetes, if that server were to crash, the service will go down. But the way Kubernetes work is that you assign multiple servers to tasks. They are called pods technically. And basically these pods always try to be at a minimum amount of like running, sorry. So if one server were to crash, more pods will be started up on other servers that will pick up the work that needs to be done in a redundant way. So that's one thing that allows Liqwid to be practically virtually have no downtime. And it's really nice for us even just to manage the infrastructure through it, because there's so many tools that the community has made for people to work on. One other thing is that we've improved our overall security. So for example, everything that is done uh, through Liqwid nowadays is all through a VPN. We don't have any publicly accessible services or anything like that. That is kind of like needs security. Everything is private, so you can't access it at all outside from the internet. And we also have other security requirements, like having a physical key to sign up commits and infrastructure changes. So, for example, if you were to get access to our GitHub or anything like that, you would not be able to make any changes, because you need to have the physical key to sign and make sure that you actually are the person doing it. So yeah, these are like the two main security things that we've been working on and we're still working on. But yeah, this is already huge. Like it makes us like virtually like invulnerable to hacking. And yeah, I think that's it.
Wow, so you heard it from the horse's mouth, guys. All right, so Thomas, what new features can users look forward to in the coming updates?
Yeah. So like really soon we should have notifications coming up. So For example, if you wanted to get a notification on, I don't know, like let's say your email and Telegram about your loans getting under a certain L factor or any other type of like changes, now I mean, once the feature is out, you'll be able to get notified whenever something happens. We have multiple rules. So like, for example, if you were to get liquidated sadly, or get under a certain L factor, or if your debt accrued to a certain amount, you can choose to customize all of these rules. And these rules will trigger whatever notification you set up. For now, we just have emails and Telegram, but if any others are like highly requested and actually useful, we can add definitely more. And we also have the new UI design that the team has worked on. So yeah, that will be coming up. We also have, oh yeah, sorry. We also have a kind of like, I've been working on this for like quite a time, but it was kind of paused. It's basically internal Oracle system, because we are using third-party oracles, but just because we can, we want to have even more reliability regarding oracles, since they are kind of like the most important part of the system. So now we'll be able to compare our own price feeds to these third-party oracles and see if there's any kind of delta that's too big. If there is any, we get instantly notified through our notifications. And the developer will take a look at it, see what's going on, see if we need to maybe pause the markets or anything like that. Like if there's something broken, we'll get notified and work on it. We also have historical data, like kind of like more advanced historical data, and also better historical data. So we have a lot of we kind of like want to expand in our interface, because it doesn't cost much to implement in the first place. So that you'll be able to kind of like see all of your portfolio over time, how it grew, what was the API that you had at certain times, kind of everything related to historical, to your portfolio, to your loans, to anything that happens, the markets. Yeah, we're also planning on working on this and releasing it pretty soon.
Yeah, mind blown. I mean, that sounds so cool, just being able to see how my portfolio has been yielding over a period of time. So at the moment, you can only just see the API each day. You would have to track it manually. So that sounds amazing. Kylix, could you give us a quick glimpse into what users might expect now from version 3?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm very excited to announce that we're going to be focusing on something we're calling Liqwid V3. Liqwid V3 is going to be the third iteration of the Liqwid protocol. So for the first iteration, we launched in February 2023. It was pretty simple. We wanted to build a DApp that allowed permissionless lending and borrowing, and we didn't really have any, strict user-centric kind of extra requirements besides that. We wanted to build this thing to be seamless. We wanted it to be able to interop with third-party solutions. We wanted it to be permissionless, pooled, and dynamic interest rates. And of course, we also wanted a governance section. When we were, I would say from 6 months to a year into Liqwid V1, we realized that a lot of users were complaining about the user experience, namely bugs popping up, errors during transaction builds, slow page speeds, etc. So that's when we set out to do Liqwid V2. And Liqwid V2 intended to fix some of these problems, namely the user experience on the UI. I'm glad to say that Liqwid V2 has definitely succeeded in achieving a lot of its goals. However, there are some problems that you can't really solve by just going off-chain. And so to give a little bit of extra context, Liqwid V2 was only a redo of the off-chain and the implementation of market caps on the on-chain. So the on-chain protocol mostly stayed the same between Liqwid V1 and Liqwid V2. And so what is Liqwid V3, you might ask? Liqwid V3 is an entire redo of the on-chain protocol, where our focus is going to be exactly on the feedback that we got from users between Liqwid V1 and Liqwid V2. So a lot of those complaints, a lot of those reported errors and support tickets that users opened, a lot of the complaints, we're going to be focused on fixing those and fixing them properly where they need to be fixed, which is at the protocol design level. And some of these user points that some of the users that are on this X Spaces might be acquainted with are, for instance, transaction contention. You've heard us say this word over and over again when users fail to build transactions. This is a problem with the on-chain architecture, basically. So that's something we're going to be setting out to solve entirely in Liqwid V3. Another one is the centralization of the batching system. So today, currently, Liqwid Labs runs the only replica set of batching bots. And so what this means is users rely on us to keep the markets batched. When a market doesn't batch on time, this means that the market becomes inaccessible and users' transactions will fail, similar to contention. So that is obviously, in terms of UX, not so nice. And so what we're going to be doing also is decentralizing the batching system. And so this is quite similar to what some of the people on this call might recognize in something like a min swap or a Sunday swap, where they have batching and scoping systems that are totally decentralized and economically incentivized for people to partake in, the same way that we do for liquidations. This is also another goal we're setting out to do for Liqwid V3. Besides that, there's capital efficiency. So currently the DAO relies on users to repay interest for it to actually make revenue. Now what this means is, given the perpetual nature of our protocol, that the DAO frequently waits 6 months, a year, even further than that for users to repay their long outstanding debt loans for the protocol to actually make any revenue. So what we'll be doing for Liqwid V3 is we're going to obviously first research and develop, but hopefully then implement a solution where the DAO will be able to access accrued revenue. So instead of relying on users to repay their debt, the DAO will be allowed access into the user's debt, so to say, in a way where the DAO can access that money a little bit earlier and maybe use it for different purposes. There's also going to be focus on a big feature that some of our partners have been working on too. I'm not entirely sure how much I can say about our partners, so I'm going to be focusing on us right now. We're going to be building a legal compliance framework. Now, for those who don't know, in the traditional finance markets, you're not just allowed to tap into traditional products unless you prove that you are, who you say you are, and that you have a certain level of clearance. And so what we're going to be building, it's a long outstanding vision from Liqwid. It's been mentioned many times by our co-founder, Florian Valery, is basically a Liqwid Pro solution where we'll be able to list compliant markets for traditional finance products, where only users who prove that they are who they are will be able to actually access those markets and interact with them and make transactions and long, short, borrow, lend, all these different assets, which not every user from a legal perspective is allowed to actually interact with in every country. So this is a pretty big feature we're aiming to reach. And it's going to allow us to create basically private markets and prepare for RWA support, which we believe will come soon to Cardano. So these are our 3 main goals for Liqwid V3. Again, Liqwid V3 is going to be designed entirely around user feedback, very much based on the information we got from Liqwid V1 and Liqwid V2. So if anyone has any suggestions, recommendations, or problems that they have with Liqwid V1 or V2, we'll be happy to address those. So feel free to mention them on Twitter or on Discord. And of course, we'll be taking questions.
Great. Thank you, Kylix. And version 3 sounds amazing. Tim, how are you incorporating community feedback into the design?
So yeah, we're always listening to the community for feedback on the design as well. So the user drives the design. So we're looking to push out these updated user interfaces, and we'll be monitoring the users and what they feel about it, and where they can see improvements. So we always look for ways to get the feedback from the users. I think right now there are a few channels available. So I think the most easy one is to do it in Discord, and I think we even have a separate channel for it. And even like future requests is also possible in feedback in the Discord to give feedback on that. And of course, there's the governance forums where anyone can open a discussion thread and yeah, give their feedback on the app design. And we're also looking for ways to gather information on how users use the app, and maybe even where they, for example, stop the process of a borrow, and see if there's some pain points there we can optimize for. So we will be constantly having a design development and then feedback loop to keep improving the user experience and onboard the next big group of users onto Cardano DeFi and Liqwid.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely amazing. And yeah, I think we actually started to implement that on the marketing side as well, just so we can see which areas that people are finding difficult to navigate. Maybe we can create some tutorials around that. So amazing. So I guess we're going to take some audience questions now. The first one that popped up was from Rick McCracken. He pointed out a USDC on the new previews. Is that an Easter egg, perhaps? Or?
No, I wish it was an Easter egg, but it isn't. So this is just a mock-up from the design. So we're yeah, these are just mock-ups. So these are just text, and it's mainly to focus on the renewed design and not so much on the details. So I'm sorry, we didn't put an Easter egg in it right now.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We've covered a lot of ground, from our evolution in design philosophy to the exciting upcoming features in version 2. And so remember to join our Discord for continued discussions and to stay tuned for more updates about version 3. So just thanks again to all our team members that joined us today, Tim, Thomas, and Kylix, and for sharing your insights today. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.